Alright, it's time. It's time to look at one of my favorite comic books of all time, Matt Wagner's Trinity. It's lazy time and we're gonna do a review. Yes, we're gonna review a pack of rap movies and comics too. Let's all go watch the Hello everybody, I'm LaserDude99. Welcome to another comic book review, and hey, it hasn't been a year since my last one, so hey, I'm improving. So it is time to look at one of my favorite comic books of all time, Matt Wagner's Trinity, which he both wrote and drew. Really talented guy, that guy. Now, you know when you are a new comic book fan, you have like certain comic books that you are just your favorite. You know, Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, stuff like that. And you think that, you know, with those books being held in high regard, you kind of think that of all your favorite books, that everyone considers them the best of the best. Heck, when I was a kid, I thought that Batman Hush was one of the best graphic novels ever written. Because, you know, I didn't know any better back then. It's still good, just not great. One of them that I thought that everyone must love was Trinity. And it turns out that Trinity, I don't know if anybody else really knows it or has ever even read it. So I've decided to shine some light on this book and why I love it so much. Trinity is about the first meeting between Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Not Batman and Superman, because they already know each other at the beginning of this book, but it's the first meeting of when they both meet Wonder Woman and their first mission as all three of them, as the Trinity. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman have such this perfect dynamic with each other. All of them have similarities and differences, and this book accentuates that perfectly. Superman's origins comes from science fiction. It's a guy from space coming to Earth who is an alien who lives among us with superpowers. You know, that's where his stuff is originated from. Batman's origins come from nitty-gritty crime. You know, he doesn't have superpowers. He's just a human being who uses his brutality and his wits in order to beat the bad guys. Wonder Woman's origins come from fantasy. She is an ancient Greek, I wouldn't say goddess, because she's not actually a goddess, but, she's a Greek Amazon who is endowed with magical powers and magical gauntlets and lasso, and she uses them on her quest for justice and truth. So we got realistic crime, science fiction, and fantasy. It's like yin, yang, and fatang. I don't know if there's a third one. But they all offset each other perfectly. In some ways, Wonder Woman is like Superman, because her thirst for justice and the right thing is very similar to Superman. But in other ways, she's a little bit like Batman in the fact that she uses her skills and her combat prowess and not just her strength to defeat the bad guy. And she is a little bit less trusting than Superman, where Superman, you see many times in this book, he takes, people at their word on face value, where Wonder Woman's like, yeah, you're lying to me, or you're not telling me everything. But that relates to her to Batman. But Batman is different from Wonder Woman because he isn't a person that practices mercy. But he's also similar to her in the way that I just said. But he's also similar to Superman in the quest to finding the never-ending battle against evil. And that social, it's so weird how and the reason I love this book is just they accentuate that so many times. The basic story of Trinity is Batman comes across these guys in Metropolis who are trying to break in and steal this information from LexCorp. He goes to Superman about it, tries to figure out what they're trying to find, and it turns out it's Ra's al Ghul, and he's trying to find the location of Bizarro. Lex Luthor had frozen him and put him in the Arctic somewhere hidden until he could figure out how to control him. But Ra's al Ghul being a little bit less, Lex is always calculating. If he doesn't have 100%, he's not going to do it. Ra's al Ghul is willing to take some risks. So he releases Bizarro and convinces him that, hey, we're friends. You're my friend. I'm your friend. We can do whatever we want together because we're good buddies. And so he asks Bizarro to get some missiles for him, but Bizarro, being the idiot that he is, just takes a whole submarine. So he has way more nuclear missiles than he thought he was, but he's okay with that. One of them drops out of the submarine and falls near Themyscira. Wonder Woman, hearing the description of the creature, thinks it's Superman and goes to confront Superman. Superman explains it. And you know what I love about this scene? What if this was to happen nowadays in comic books? Wonder Woman thinks that Superman did something bad, but he didn't. What would happen?
Round 1. Fight!
Fight! Fight! Oh, you destroyed the sand, dude! It's all blah, blah, and then they figure out, oh no, we're on the same side, okay. What happens in here? Wonder Woman confronts Superman and says, we need to talk, I have been told that you did this thing, and Superman's like, oh, well, here, let me explain. And she explains, oh, okay, I understand. And she trusts him because she can see the truth in his eyes. Because that's what Wonder Woman's about, finding the truth in things. And so then they work together. I love that. Superman and Wonder Woman are not the type of characters to go pounding. That's like, you look in the New 52's first Justice League comic. Green Lantern goes in and starts pounding, it tries to beat up Superman, and Superman starts beating the crap out of him. That's not Superman. Superman's like, hey, what's going on here? Come on, guys, let's calm things down and just try to look at this logically. Superman's a Boy Scout. He's not a guy that's going to just throw the first punch and keep on punching. But Batman is. That's the type of character Batman is. So when Superman and Wonder Woman meet up together, they're all, they're very trusting, very nice, very kind. When they meet up with Batman, Batman's like, yeah, I don't trust you. I don't trust you at all. And she finds that infuriating, and I love how each of the characters work off of each other perfectly. Batman distrust really gets to Wonder Woman and how he uses his brutality in his crimes. Not his crimes, in him fighting crime is what I meant to say. But I also love how Batman and Superman play off of each other. Like, there's so many moments where Batman does something and Superman knew he was going to do that, but he pretends like he didn't know. Like he says, like there's a moment where they're flying and Batman and Superman is carrying Batman with this glider thing, and Batman just releases it as soon as they get to the place where he can fly on his own. And Superman's like, yeah, like I couldn't see the hit and release mechanism. But he doesn't say anything, because that'd be rude. That's not Superman. He's not that type of guy that's gonna, just gonna destroy his friend's, perception. That's just rude, One of the other things that this story handles well is they have like a perfect, like I said, kind of like the yin and yang and twang or whatever I said, but they have this perfect dynamic of these how they need each other. There's a moment where Wonder Woman's following Bizarro. She finds him on her own, and she follows him in. And she goes alone. And she's able to take Ra's al Ghul down like it's nothing, right? Just Ra's al Ghul tries to attack her and she's like, pfft. And she's like, yeah, whatever. But then Bizarro comes in and beats the crap out of her. Like, beats her nearly to death. And then she has to be saved, not by Superman, but by Batman, who uses his intelligence to know that Bizarro, his skin, since it's opposite of Superman, it can't take direct sunlight that well. So he has a solar blast right into his eyes, blinding him, making him and he runs away because he's not an intelligent being. He uses his intelligence to outsmart Bizarro. But it's kind of then he has trouble with, but then Batman has trouble with Ra's al Ghul. And you have this thing where each of these characters are like Ra's al Ghul isn't afraid of Superman. To him, Superman's just a big bully, a big brute. He's always thinking of what the detective is up to. And Bizarro is maybe not so much Bizarro. There's the villains there's three. There's Bizarro, Ra's al Ghul, but then there's this third one who is she's not exactly a Wonder Woman villain. She's an Amazonian who has lost her way and has allowed herself to be manipulated and joined Ra's al Ghul's cause. And there's a moment where Batman faces the Amazonian woman, and she actually is able to knock him down and run away, and she gets away. But then you have also stuff like It's this really, they have this really good dynamic. None of the characters are just better than the other. They all have times where they fall, and then the other character can pick up the slack. I like how Wonder Woman thinks at first Superman is just being misogynistic when he keeps on trying to save her, even though she can clearly take care of herself. But then she realizes, no, he'd do this for anybody. It's not him being a man. And Wonder Woman has this whole character arc where she keeps on saying all the time, oh, men, so obvious. But by the end of it, she realizes there's more to these men, you know? Superman's not just Superman, and Batman isn't just a jerk. He's doing things because he thinks this is the right way to do them. She comes to the realization that the characters, that men and other people in general are more complicated than she's giving them credit for. I also love how this book makes these characters really relatable. There's a moment early on, Superman's talking about which of his powers is the hardest not to use in everyday life, and he says how it's listening, the super hearing, because it's always easy, like, if you're seeing something you shouldn't be seeing, it's always easy to go, oh, shoot, whatever. But if you're sitting down and you're hearing something you shouldn't be hearing, it's always hard to say, okay, I'm not going to listen to this. And that's so true. That's so true. Even if you don't have super hearing, if you're hearing something and you're listening in and you're like, oh, I shouldn't be hearing this, it's a lot harder to go like, no, than it is to just avert your gaze. This book also has a lot of really interesting ideas. I like how there's a moment where Ubu, who you might remember from Batman the Animated Series from always saying
Infidel.
Yeah, he's in this story, but he dies. He kills himself in order to try to set off one of the missiles that Superman has to then take into the Earth's core in order for it to hurt anyone. But he shows up later, and the girl Amazon on Ra's al Ghul's side is like, wait, didn't we just leave Ubu in that place? He's like, yeah, this entire clan is an Ubu. Every male is named Ubu, and their only destiny is to serve me. And she's like, well, what about the women? And he goes, well, the women are given to the soldiers for subsistence. And they're like, oh man, you're an awful person, Ra's al Ghul. But it's an interesting idea how there's just, instead of it just being one guy, it's an entire clan that just trains their children to serve Ra's al Ghul, and that's all they're built for, and they'll kill themselves over it. And it's just like, dang, that's really twisted, but really interesting. Ra's is a great villain in the story because he's manipulating both Bizarro and this Amazonian woman to increase his goals. He's trying to act like, oh, we're going to save the planet and everything, but really he just wants to take over the world. And he's using his mass manipulation in order to suck them in and I think that's the thing in the end. While Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman have trouble clicking together early on, eventually they find that they're able to trust each other as a team and work together to destroy the evil. Where Ra's al Ghul is only using them as pawns and not as equals. So in the end, the Amazonian woman, she doesn't feel the loyalty, and she backs out and she starts shooting up all their own stuff. And Bizarro, it's just being a monster. It doesn't have the intelligence. And when he eventually goes up against Superman, is very easily defeated by him because he doesn't have any backup. The art is very basic for this book. It has really good stuff. I like how whenever you go to each of the cities of the characters, you're given this full page spread of the city. And I love how it just encapsulates the tone of the cities and the characters. You look at Metropolis. It looks so inviting and so like a lovely city, a nice place to live. Then you look at Gotham, and it's just like this red sky and straight buildings just shot straight up onto the sky. And it's like, dang, this place looks horrible. It looks like a definitely not a nice place to live and to go to. And, that's kind of what Gotham is. It's a dangerous city. It's a place that's not necessarily inviting, but it's a dangerous place to go. And then you have, of course, then you go to Themyscira. And it's just an island paradise, and you get a good view of it, and it's like it encapsulates the tone of each of the characters and their cities. Superman is inviting. He is a totally inviting person that would want you to come in and to have dinner. Batman is dangerous and dark. He's not a character who's just a nice guy that's going to invite you in. If you go to Batman, he's going to distrust you immediately, and it's going to take a while before you actually earn his trust. And yeah, Wonder Woman, who is this calming force for good. And I like how for some reason this sounds like the only version of Wonder Woman's mother that I don't hate. Wonder Woman's mother in comics is always such a pain. When she hears that there was men on Themyscira, she's like, Diana, you know that's just against her culture. But she's not like, they must die, everyone must die, and you must be banished or anything. She's just like, yeah, look, it's like, I get it. And she's not such a stick in the mud, which I like. But you also get, like, quick moments. Like, all the supporting cast of these characters only get, like, one quick moment. There's a moment where Lois walks in on Clark looking at a Lex file, and she thinks that he's doing some work on LexCorp. She's like, hey, that's my beat. And then he's like, no, that's not what you think. And Robin shows up, but only for a second. He's not even in the Robin costume. He's just there, and he's like... like, Bruce has a moment where he says, yeah, as soon as I found out that Bizarro was involved in this, he's not being involved in this investigation. And Superman's like, oh, so he's only able to go against homicidal psychopaths and madmen. And Batman says, well, at least madmen is human. Your kind is too dangerous. And like, Clark doesn't go like, our kind? Our kind? What are you trying to say, Bruce? He goes like, okay, whatever, I get it. I get what you mean. I think, while there isn't too many things I can say that are absolutely mind-blowing, amazing about this book, I don't think I can find anything wrong with it. I don't know, this, in my mind, just encapsulates all the characters very well. I love Trinity. If you ever see this in a comic book store, I would recommend picking it up. In my mind, it's not like a mind-blowing story. This is a fun book that gives the first meeting of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman an epic weight because there is a lot at stake, but it also gives them just great character moments. Clark feels very relatable and not just the untouchable big guy. Wonder Woman feels very relatable. Batman always feels relatable, and even more so in this book. So in the end, I'm going to give Trinity, written and art done by Matt Wagner, an 8 out of 10. This is a great read. I love this book. It is one of my favorites. I've read it 1,000 times, and it's going to be probably read more in the future because it just encapsulates the characters so well. So if you ever see this book in the store, or maybe you can look it up on Amazon if you have any interest, this is a classic story of how when I did this, I did it because I kind of wanted to see how I felt about, Batman v Superman and the first meeting of these characters. This is how I liked it. The characters have struggled trusting each other, but they're never actually against each other. They're never actually fighting. They just have distrust and different ways of looking at things, and eventually they overcome that. That's the type of story I would have wanted, and I would have liked Batman v Superman a lot more, but in the end, I can just say that I love Trinity, think it's a great book. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Lazy99, and I need a new catchphrase because that old one sucks. Anyway, adios.
Be sure to check out more of my other videos on my channel, and wait for more coming soon.